Hey, I'm Meg Wilson, founder and CEO of SPKN, and I am Coach to Win.
Go get me some knowledge.
I want to start with the one question I probably think you get most of the time when you first meet with somebody. You have your website and it's called the Sports Professional
Yes.
Knowledge Network, right? Spoken with no O.
Sure. Yeah.
I will get into your career a little bit, but just explain to me why you started Spoken. Why was it important for you to start a network like this?
Well, I like to start off with a story. Can I start off with a story? I'll give you a good
Okay,
idea.
absolutely.
So, I obviously was in athletics growing up, but then I became a coach and had a lot of experiences as a coach. And one of them was when I was teaching my or teaching. Okay, U6. You're not teaching anything. You're pointing and hoping they go in the right direction. So U6
Yeah.
soccer, I'm out there with my son, and I had three dads come up on at the same game, and they're like, "Why are you coaching instead of your husband?" And I was like, "Well, because he wasn't quite done with the dishes yet."
Huh?
I mean, it was because I didn't
How,
make
that's a little
sure.
rude, is it not?
So that was the first coaching experience I had. And then it goes all the way up to working with a D1 program. They didn't have a great winning record. And so the coach was like, we need unity. We really need to, kind of get some grit and bring everybody together. And so he had this brilliant idea. He went to the local correctional facility and got all these cots and he put them in the locker room, and the kids had to stay there over the weekend while they were getting ready for this big tournament. I don't know about you, but boys and men's locker rooms, not a place you want to stay for a long time. Certainly don't want to live there for a weekend. Um, but so he's like, this is how the kids are going to start playing together. And then he got these wristbands, right? And they're like, okay, um, it had their record on it, and it was like a really bad losing record. And then it said, "Not good enough." And then finally he had this picture frame, right? And it said champions on it. Like you would celebrate your kid, right? And it was empty. And he's like, "You know why it's empty? Because none of you are champions." And I heard this is
Ooh.
when they brought me in. I heard this, and I was like, yeah, there's probably like, especially in youth sports, there's less than 9% who have had any kind of formal education or education in motivation, communication, in coaching. They've all played the sport. So I realized at that point that yes, coaches focus on creating skills, creating athletes who can do their sport well, technical, tactical, but that's it. And so who's out there supporting them with other education that they need to have, especially now, because they're spending more time with kids are spending more time with their coaches than they are like even their teachers. So that's what kind of motivated me was my experiences once I became a coach and started looking at the athletes, looking at their experiences, seeing what I had gotten out of sport and looking at what it is now.
Almost feels like an impossible task, to be honest with you, Meg. And I
So,
mean this seriously because there's so many coaches, there's so many kids. How kids relate to the coaches and what's important to them has changed. And there's so much turnover, especially with parents at a young age and then AAU. And then here comes a whole new set of coaches and a whole new set of kids. It almost seems like too much. If coaches need coaching, is there like three main things that you would say, okay, before we even get into the weeds, you have to be committed to like these two or three things, and then we can start working on how
it's
you
one
should
thing.
message the kids?
only one thing. It's only
It's
one
one
thing.
thing, even better.
Continual learning.
Okay.
Continual learning. We ask our athletes to do it all the time. We ask them to try new things when they're out there playing and practicing, and we read something or we give them something. When do we pay attention to what we're doing and how we're building up our our expertise? Are we staying on top of research? Most coaches don't know there's a huge amount of research out there on coaching and how to motivate kids and how to connect with your kids and how to make that generational legacy, because it's hard. I mean, each generation you've got a different type of kid coming through. That I mean, right now you've got 2.7 seconds. I mean, 2.7 minutes to get across any concept because the attention spans are are so short.
I was going to say that seems like a lot.
To
2.7
get a
minutes
concept
to get a
across,
point across.
so to
Get a
learn
concept
something new.
across. Okay, a new play or just a new philosophy, a new inbounds play, a new whatever.
Yeah, whatever. A new math problem.
Did you have a coach that made an impact on your life because you played tennis at the D1 level? You rode crew, which is a weird mix. I'd love to get into why you chose crew if you were a tennis player, but because I always feel like there's my wish for my kids would be that they would have a coach at some point in time in their life that would impact them as much as some of my coaches impacted me. But I feel
It
like that's
is.
few and far
Yeah. And
between.
I don't know if it's because we need so many more coaches now. With the change, we grew up, we're kind of called what's called playground based. So we grew up in playgrounds, making up rules, playing with, you're on this team, you're on that team, learning all
Yeah.
those things, those coping mechanisms, those, I mean, being picked last, being, life isn't fair. Those are things that we learned out there that they don't learn anymore because everyone goes into organized sports so quickly. If you don't get started by the time you're 3, I think your idea of going pro is gone. Is that how it works?
I don't know if it's 3,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is. The one thing I wish there was less of was parental involvement, learning how to adapt, handle conflict, deal with rules and creating your own rules and your own kind of culture on a day when just the courts are open or the fields are open. It's just hard to do because everything is so organized. I think the kids just usually rely on it. What do you see as one of the biggest problems in youth sports?
Well, obviously, I think that coaching, I mean, I spent a lot of time researching what was going to kind of move the needle. I love working with kids, so I'd much rather be working with the athletes. But I felt like the coaches were in between the parents, the administration, and the athletes. And that if I could kind of tweak that a little bit, then we might start seeing a difference. But I think one of the major problems is, besides lack of coaching education, is that the kids they're so overwhelmed, overscheduled, overworked. Um, Someone said to me once, I think it was Dr. Cookley, but he said that when he was growing up, people would go to his parents and say, "Oh, aren't you so proud to have, Meg is this great tennis player?" And my parents would say, "Yeah, isn't it great?" And then, when as I was growing up, they would say, um, "Oh, you're so lucky to have an athlete like Megan, right?" And now it's like, how did you create a Tiger Woods? How did you create a Venus Williams? So the all of a sudden we've got all of the responsibility and credit going to the parents on these athletic kids. And I think that's a really essential shift.
I was talking to a college basketball coach, and we were having a similar discussion. His philosophy or his belief was that if the parents aren't just as committed as the kid, then the kid won't reach his full potential. What you think about that?
I think that's you asked me who my best coach was. I was going to say my dad. I, I think
Okay.
now parents are committed in a different way. I think that they
How so?
get an idea that their kid could go all the way. Maybe they played and they didn't quite make it as far as they hoped they had gone. Um, but I think that it's okay to be committed to helping your kid, but the problem is that doesn't mean, not letting them lose, not letting them fall on their face. You can't have resilience. You can't have mental toughness. You can't have unless you walk through that. That's why the anxiety, this is the anxiety generation, is because everyone, including myself, protected their kids from everything. And I've read some research that is kind of based on, 9/11 and before that, all the kidnappings and, so there's all this kind of protective instinct going on right now. And we don't want them to have to tell whether they won or lost. So we give participation trophies. Everybody wins. And then all of a sudden you got to tell a 12-year-old, it sucks to be you, you lost.
Do you have any general rules for parents when it comes to post game interaction? Good, usually bad, because the good interaction on a good win and a good performance is usually easy. But the bad, how do you handle that? How do you engage with your child, or do you not
What's
engage
bad?
at all? I just didn't play well. The team lost or the team won. I feel like I'm not contributing. Everybody else is playing well and getting congratulated. I'm not. I feel like the coach is playing favorites. He's biased to
How
his
are the
own
refs?
kid,
Were the
that
refs
type
okay?
of stuff. Oh, the refs and the
You
refs
got
too. The refs are out to get me, right?
that. Right.
It's always the refs' fault, right? The refs are
Right.
out to get
Well,
me.
let me ask you, on your worst day, you personally, on your
Me
worst
personally.
day,
Okay.
just have one in your mind. What did you learn?
That it's never as
Okay.
bad as I
On
thought
your
it was.
best day, Super Bowl, championship, what'd
Yeah.
you learn?
Well, if I go all the way to the best day of my athletic career, then it was everything was worth it, and I was happy as hell. Like I learned like it was worth it. And I would normally say it's never as good as you think, but if I go Super Bowl, it is absolutely everything you think it would
Yeah.
be.
And to get there, you have to learn all the other stuff. So, y yes, we wanna be we especially if you're a coach, that's the hard part. If you're a coach and you're talking to your kid who has I have a daughter who played D1 soccer, I have a son who's a D1 basketball coach. It if you're a coach, you see all the things they're doing wrong. And so it's more about managing their expectations, um, than
So what's the best approach to do that? If I'm a parent managing their expectations, but does there need to be some sort of reality check?
yes and no, but not right after. It depends on the time, because right after the game, you don't wanna talk to the coach, you don't wanna talk to the kids. You just let them process it. And it depends on the age too. I
Okay.
mean, if you're a D1, parent, you shouldn't be talking to your kids. Sorry, but
Yeah.
if you are, you know what I mean. When you say kids, it could be anything. If it's a 5-year-old, you say, "Let's go get ice cream."
Yeah.
Bummer, let's go get ice cream. But a lot of the times, you're going to get
Yeah.
kids who are talking about, what I did wrong. The coach didn't put me in. I can't believe you didn't play well. The worst thing you can do is talk about that with them. Just, to kinda cut that off is the best possible thing. Well, that's part of the game, I mean, what do you think you need to do to play better? Or, you know, maybe just kind of talk about what they're talking about, don't bring anything up to them. Some kids just don't wanna talk, and you need to let them process that way. So, it depends on the kid, just like coaching.
So how are you as a
Awesome.
parent? Like what was your game plan watch? Oh yeah, just the best parent of all time. How were you did you yell? Did you scream? Did you just sit back? Like parents are so eclectic in their behavior, and I just choose to be silent. I wonder like what were you like? Was there a lot of like eye contact? Were you coaching from the
No, I would
stands, or is
never
that a
do
no
that.
no?
You know what? First of all, we're pretending our kids can differentiate who's talking when they're on the field or on the court. I mean, um, what if I say something that's different than what the development that the coach is bringing them through. I mean, I was pretty silent. I actually ended up more talking to the parents than I did watching my kids. A lot of times I had to break up
Yeah.
fights in the stands. I had to stand between two coaches. I mean, these are the experiences that kind of led to SPKN. So, um, but yeah, I think that they want to hear everyone loves to hear their name, go cheering. No one wants to hear from both sides what to do. What we really
Yeah.
want with kids is for them to
Yeah.
think, right? So we don't want to tell them what to do because we want them to learn how to make decisions on their own.
Easier said than done. Easier said than done. I'm guilty of it myself. And I hate myself when I do it because I want them to think for themselves. And I hate when hey, your dribble, shoot it, dribble this way. No,
No,
catch it.
I
No,
don't
what is
win.
wrong with you? And I'm giving him. I feel like such an idiot when I do that. I want to briefly talk about your 6 pillars from SPKN, the Sports Professional Knowledge Network. The first one,
Most
well-being
important.
and performance. Really? Okay. Is that no
No,
surprise that it's number
that is
one
not a
on your guys'
surprise.
website?
No. And it's interesting because
Okay.
when I talk to
Why?
coaches, they're like, we don't have time for mental toughness. We don't have time to train people mentally because we only get 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day with these kids. And I got so many drills that I have to get on. I mean, I have to have so many drills done by this time or they're not going to perform well. Wait a minute. If you're not mentally tough and if you are not mentally well, how are you going to perform anyway? So that's the first thing. The second thing is there are ways that you can actually do both at the same time. And most coaches don't know that. And so bringing that to the forefront and making the importance on mental health and mental toughness, resilience, leadership, these are things that we want coaches to be teaching while they're doing drills. There's plenty of time for both, but that is are the most important because
Yeah.
how much was your performance mental?
All of it. I mean, all of it. And I mean, chopped up
Yeah.
into various departments. It's absolutely 100% of it. Social issues and
Yeah,
ethics.
that's something that I think is there's so much more research on now on how to as we're coaching individual athletes, we have to take into account where they come from, where they there was a football coach who was working with an athlete. This was it was either college or pro, but and the guy wouldn't look him in the eye, and it made him crazy. So you got to respect me. I'm your coach. You can't look me in the eye. Well, it turns out the country that this poor guy came from, that is an insult, and he couldn't look him in the eye. And so learning things like that is really important. Think of all the time I'm a effective and efficiency person. So all the time that was wasted on that when it could have been known ahead of time. Knowing cultural coaching is very important.
And that's not just cultural from other countries, it's regional, right? The South, the West, the North. And then you can break it down to family dynamics, single family
Yeah.
home. I don't have a mailbox. I don't have a driveway, that type of thing. I used to hate when the coach would have one
Mhm.
set of rules for everybody. I just feel like there are so many dead ends with that. And I don't think you should give certain players special treatment, but each coach is differently. The key is just to be fair and honest and, do what's right for the team.
How many
How do you
kids
feel
do you
about
have?
that?
Okay, so do you
5.
when each of them do something that you have to address, do you address them all equally? Exactly the same? Not equally, the same.
Well, no. The standard operating procedures for me when it comes to sports stays the same, but how I address them, my tone, it's
Yeah,
different
and
for
their
all of
and their
them.
expectations of themselves, are they do they take things harder than other kids? Do they I run into
Yeah.
that a lot, especially in soccer, when male coaches have female teenagers that they're coaching. That's a special time.
Yeah.
So it
Ooh.
is not the same.
Who do you think's harder to coach?
The
Girls
parents.
or
Oh, no, wait,
boys?
that wasn't the
Men or
question.
women?
Um, I think that they are both equally difficult, especially if you don't have any support or education on how to teach. But I think that it's very different. So you talk about equitable and equal, you know, it's definitely
Yeah.
equally challenging uh, in coaching skills, but it is very different in the way that you approach things. They're motivated by different things. Their behavior is very different to certain types of quote punishment. So it is different. In fact, we have on our board we have Allison Foley, who was the winningest soccer coach at Boston College, who is a specialist in coaching girls. She is,
She's a
yeah.
specialist in
She's
coaching
amazing.
girls.
She did the
Okay.
women's soccer, yeah.
I
Yeah,
bet.
just really
Yeah.
understanding that you're growing young women is really important at that age.
Out of the 5 kids, I have 4 girls. So where were you 10 years ago? All right, number 3, because I want to get to this is one I think is really important because I hear this a lot. I hear it at the pro level a lot, especially when it comes to,
Yeah.
starting over again. Communication and team culture.
Those are buzzwords, aren't they?
Oh, the culture may be thrown around more than anything
Yeah.
I've ever heard of in my
How would
life.
how do you define
Communication and
team
team
culture? I'm
culture.
curious.
I don't think I have like a one sentence line for it, but I always believe that the culture is set up by the team and it's a unified belief on what our collective standards are. That's how I would just
Like, wow.
generically kind of state them. You ever heard of like the dog whisperer, Caesar Milan or Romero or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that? You ever seen that guy? Okay, so he used to have this show, and he would always have
Yeah.
this like disruptive dog, right? He'd have this dog, and the dog was unruly, and the owner couldn't handle the dog. So what he would do, he would train him a little bit one on one, and then he would put him into the pack that already had an established set of rules and regulations. That was their culture, right? So as soon as that dog went into that pack, he really only had 2 choices: get right, act right, fall in line, or be pushed out of the herd, right? Most of the dogs, all of the dogs,
Yeah.
they just changed. That's the analogy I like to use when it comes to culture and how important it is and how any team can change their culture when I think about
Yeah.
our
No,
dog
that
whisperer
is a
friend.
great definition. A lot of people will just say, "Oh, it's the vibe."
Yeah, no, it's too vague. Yeah, it's too vague. Like I have a vibe when I go to a club or I go to a restaurant. If it may be different depending on if I'm
Right,
hungry or if I
exactly,
already ate.
exactly.
Well, how
I
would you
think that's
define
right
it?
on. I think it is the values and the focus of everyone as a team, as a unity, and usually you hope that that kind of trickles down from above. So, if say it's a club, if the administration comes up with their goals and their mission, and then it kind of goes to the next level, and then the coaches, and then even the kids, you want to get your athletes to all kind of do their individual stuff so that they can see what their role is on the team and where they fit in, because then you're kind of opening it up so that they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, which is really important in a team.
Who do you think does it right? Well, give me some coaches other than the
Oh, no,
Harbaughs, right? Because we know
right?
they we know they do it right. We know they do it
Steve
right. They don't
Kerr.
need any more compliments.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I,
Steve
I think
Kerr.
they're
Okay.
out there. I think they're out there definitely. It's coaches, I think, especially for youth sports, it's harder because and a volunteer, coach, a volunteer dad, that's a lot of time to be putting in to come up with a whole system and you don't have the same kids every time. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a different thing. That's fun. That's exercise, I mean,
of course. Yeah.
but yeah, I think it matters a lot. And the hardest thing to do, I have coaches that have to create just their system because the administration's not bought in. We have our coaching philosophy, don't worry about it. And it's something like, have fun, or just, it's one word. Um, so it's very difficult because it is work. Um, Most people who start a career actually have to learn about it. There's more regulations on becoming a barber than there are To becoming a coach? Yeah.
Yeah, because there's, hey, we got our seventh grade soccer team and we need some parents to coach. Who wants to do it? Just sign up. We need a live body.
Uh,
All right, I want to get these last three. Here's the fourth one because they're all great, by the way. Skill and
what
coach development. I
about,
think
yeah,
we've kind of
that's
touched on that a
the
little bit.
coach
It's all
philosophy and values. Yeah.
okay. Let's go to the next one. Nutrition
All
and
right. So nutrition's my
PEDs.
favorite because
Uh, uh,
my goal, I was like, even if we just put nutrition somewhere, good nutrition. I've had so many kids come up to me and they're like, I'm eating raw liver off the floor. I'm going to be so buff. I'm ready. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Some nutritionist on YouTube knows what he's talking about. I was like, oh boy. I had another
I know,
kid
right?
that had all these protein bars. So he knew how much protein he was taking in. I was like, you cannot live on protein bars. You need to eat food. I mean, really having
Yeah.
good nutrition, but also, there are just like there's fad diets and nutritional things. There's fad supplements, and when should you be taking these? That's what is not said a lot. So you see pro athletes doing creatine and all these things to help their body, and you've got some 12-year-old that's copying that, and it's like, no, no, no. You're not. Your
Mhm.
body's not ready for that.
The new fad that I've seen now that is somehow is become mainstream and acceptable and there's no stigma attached to it anymore, and I guess people have done more research on it,
Yeah.
is creatine. And what used to be a straight up meathead getting swole, everybody that I know that was taking it, and I took it myself, it would bloat you out a little bit. You had to drink a lot of water, and most guys would end up tearing something in a hamstring, and then it just kind of went away. And now it's back in vogue. Do you know anything about
I
that
have
or
heard
even
about
heard
it.
about
I
that?
have worked with kids that are taking it that really shouldn't take it. We have a dietitian. There's a very big difference between a nutritionist who basically can just get something online that says you're a nutritionist and a dietitian who actually has degrees in nutrition. So we have a dietitian on staff that does all of our nutritional fact checking. So we have an editorial board that goes over the entire Sport Knowledge Center, which is what we call our website. And then also creates the courses in our Sport Leadership Academy. So we have all of this editorial board who has specialists in each of these categories, then monitors and makes sure that the information that we put up is 100% research backed, and not one of those,
Oh, that's
"Hey, do
great.
you like," not that kind of research.
And PEDs, I guess that's the same thing. Like that's a performance enhancing drug. I wasn't want to make sure, right? So we're not talking about
A lot
steroids,
of times we are. I mean, a
or
lot
are
of
we?
times coaches will do it.
Oh, okay.
It
Sounds
is
like
a
a dirty
dirty
word. When someone says steroids, I feel like I should be like, yeah, man,
exactly. Well, and
steroids.
what that includes, because it includes a lot of stuff that kids don't think are steroids. I mean, "Oh, my coach gave this to me. It's something I put in my kids are given stuff and not they don't know what they are. So a place where people can check
Yeah,
on that and see, even programs will pass down. And this is not every program, obviously, but really understanding. And then
yeah,
as you get more competitive, and you get into when they're testing, how does that work? What does it mean? As you're going off to college, you can go in and listen to what the process is and how they pick people and what happens when pot shows up, or what happens if I happen to eat a poppy
yeah.
bagel. I mean, these kind of things are important.
Okay. Last one on the six pillars. Sports, science, and technology.
Technology is a pet peeve of mine, so I'll start with that. So coaches now, it used to be
Okay.
fantastic because here's all this new data that you can kind of combine with your knowledge of coaching and athlete development. Unfortunately, newer coaches just starting out, they grab onto those numbers and they hold on to them for dear life, and they make all their decisions based on these algorithms and numbers for things it reminds me kind of the combine and how you know you look back and the greatest football players and you look at their combine stuff and you're like, okay. There's all this research on how they had really bad scores in certain areas, but they had something special, you know? They had it, whatever that it is. And so you miss that. You miss that when you're paying attention to numbers more than people. People are not numbers. It does help, but it's hard for new coaches who are so desperate to keep their job and win, that they want something to lean on. And so, technology, we really haven't gotten into that. Now we're only 3 years old. We've got amazing stuff up there, but technology in particular is one of the ones that we are kind of waiting to figure out how we want to attack it so that it interacts with all the social science that we have up there. And then sports science is training. Um, it- it's the correct way. Not everybody has a sports psychologist on staff. Not everybody has a strength and conditioning coach. I want coaches to have at least enough information to know that they shouldn't be having even football players doing 400-pound squats when they're 15. You know, it's just too much. They're going to get it. So really
Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
the process, not, give me 10 just because that's what my coach told me to do.
You've been so gracious. I think I've probably learned more in this 35-minute conversation than at least I think I have a real key understanding of, how to label these problems, how you separate it with the 6 pillars. And they're all so significant, Meg. They're just all so important. So when it's all said and done, how would you know that you've made an impact with
Yeah,
everything
you
that you're
said
doing?
before it's hard. And what I was going to tell you then is I had someone was like, you're going to go talk to, Nike and stuff. Do you need an NDA? And I was like, no, because no one's stupid enough to do this except for me. Including pushing a huge boulder up a hill, but I am going
Yeah.
to keep pushing until it moves. And if it saves one kid, when I first started this, there was a pocket of athletes taking their own lives where I lived, and it was too much for me. It just seemed like that didn't need to happen, and they were athletes, so it was a problem for me. Um, I think if I can stop one of those, if I can just from pressure from parents, from coaches, because there's so much pressure to win and so much pressure to be the one that gets the scholarship, or the focus is not quite on what it needs to be, and that is, I don't know about you, I loved playing tennis. I still do. I love playing every sport there is. That's what we want. I've seen too many kids just quit the sport that they
Mm,
loved and never play it again because of
yeah.
coaches. So I think it's really important to look for that. The impact is to start getting coaches certified so that there is a more formal education, a more formal, Aspen Institute Sport and Society is working on it in government, and getting, a council together, and everyone's doing such incredible work in this space. It's wonderful to see, and we all back each other. We're all there, trying to come together and move that rock. So I'm hopeful that we'll start seeing some kids that have more coping mechanisms, more um, trust is cultivated with their coaches, and their performance will improve. There's no question.
Go get me some knowledge.